Hi there, my name is Niamh Mulvey and my book Hearts and Bones, Love Songs for Late Youth came out in June this year, June 22. This book is a collection of short stories and all of the stories revolve around the themes of connection, disconnection and attempts at reconnection. I'm going to read the beginning of a story called Blackbirds, which is about the ever-changing relationship between a brother and sister. I'm just going to read the beginning of it. Blackbirds. He loved to look after her. He saw it as his responsibility. He was small, yes, but she was smaller. Everything and everyone else towered over them. He knew how she felt like no one else could. Their mother saw that he took his responsibilities seriously, and she approved. They were let run wild. The house was big enough to roam through, and that was before you even got outside. They lived in the countryside near a lake. She wore his old clothes up until they were 10, 12 years old. The small school in the village was the first place he felt that maybe he was different. He was frightened when he started, and then bored and hemmed in as he grew. She felt the same 2 years behind him, and on the day she started junior infants, he was sad to see how she cried, but also relieved to see she had no time for any of this either. He wanted to get home, where they could float sticks in potholes in the driveway, and bounce pennies off milk gone rubbery in teacups under creaky beds in never-used rooms. Their mother didn't bother much with housework, and so the house softened around them, breathing and exhaling, rattling in the winds in winter, full of pools of sun and shadow in summer. When he went to other people's houses, his head would ring. The spaces were so small, and all he could feel in his nose was cleaning fluid and furniture polish. He was so happy to live where he lived with the people he lived with. He felt sorry for the other kids in their small, normal houses, other kids who didn't want to spend all their time with their brothers and sisters, other kids who wanted all the time to go to other places and to be with other people, other kids with their mums who worked and their dads who worked, not like his mum who never worked and his dad who was retired now and more like a granddad than a dad, but that was fine by him. He didn't have any granddads, so his dad was like dad and granddad both. And he and his sister never had to worry about making a mess or being quiet. There was space and time enough for them to do pretty much as they pleased. And who cared if sometimes the house was cold because they couldn't afford to heat it, or that their TV was black and white and had only the 2 channels. He felt so lucky to have all of that. And it was puzzling, but also funny to him that no one seemed to see how lucky he was. When the other kids made fun of him for the holes in his jumper or not knowing who He-Man was, he just looked out the window towards home, the big house up the road and down the lane. A blackbird in the hawthorn in the spring. That's what she wrote about in her essay. He remembers that she was called up in front of the school to read it. It was just 1 page long, homework they had been given, and he, of course, had not even tried to do it. Their school was so small that when he was in 6th class and she in 4th, they were taught by the same teacher, and that was when he realised that not only was she better able to do all the school things than he was, but that she cared about all of the school things, and other people admired that she cared. Her plump, dimpled face, brown and freckly from all the time outside, flushed with delight as Mrs. Carson called her name. She won the English prize that year, and she told their daddy it was the first time someone in 4th class had won it. Their mum was so delighted she poured sherry into tiny, dusty glasses, and they all drank some, just a thimble-sized amount for him and her. To my little poet, their mother said by way of a toast, and their dad grinned and clapped. After that, it all changed. He went to secondary school and the black clouds came in and didn't lift. It was an all-boys school. He was short and quiet and uninterested in team sports and lacked academic talent. He didn't know how important it was. His parents had forgotten to tell him. They seemed to think that all that mattered was getting on with your own business. They had forgotten to test his spellings, to do tables, and now it was too late. He was ashamed of his poor handwriting. He was impatient with chunks of prose. Numbers swam before him on the page. He was in the lower stream, which was full of boys from the town, boys who called him landlord because of his big house and his mam who had gone to university and talked different. Landlord's coming, they'd say, and they'd start banging the lids of their desks because they knew it drove him wild. He was frightened of loud noises. He could not cry, so he'd bark like a dog, and then howl, and then the teacher would come in and look at him with intense dislike, and he'd be sent to the head, and he'd sit there and look at the head, who looked back at him and said, "You've no excuse for this kind of carry-on, no excuse at all." And with her, it was just the opposite. She soared through the girls' school, and he heard it whispered more than once, more than twice, that it was good for her to be away from him, that she had her own friends now, that it was all much healthier. But they never stopped being kind to each other. They never fought. They still went on their long, quiet walks, and when he started smoking weed, she happily joined in, even though he knew she didn't really like it. It wasn't her style. She didn't like the way it made her mind bend, but he did, and that was the start of it. And in the dark tumult of the years that followed, it was only her who kept him breathing, who kept him alive, really. And even when he went through the phase, and it was a long, terrible phase, of blaming her for everything, if only she'd stayed on his side. Why did she have to go and be happy in the world? Why couldn't she have rejected it like he did? Why did she have to be such a success? A doctor, it turned out, a doctor like their mother's father had been. Even in those years, when he actually saw her, when she would come home and they'd walk down to the lake, he realised he couldn't hate her. When he was with her, all of the hatred and frustration that marked his days eased at least a little. But she never stayed very long. He heard her say once to a friend on the phone, when she thought no one could hear, that she couldn't bear it. It was too sad with Daddy getting on, and with Mam more dreamy and absent than ever, and the place so dirty, and with him. And she just said his name and stopped speaking, as if his name were enough, as if his name stood for all kinds of sadness and regret. He was numb and resigned to it all now, and it was the way it was. One day, after their dad had died and he was rooting through some old boxes looking for some tools, he found a stash of papers. And in the stash, which he had started looking through, thinking he might find a bank statement revealing some secret money, he found the Blackbird essay. And he read it, and it was actually about two birds. He'd no recollection of there being two birds. And even though it was a silly, childish story, it amazed him how he had not recalled there had been two birds in it, one serious, the other a joker, and so he called her up and they talked about it and laughed together as equals for the first time in many years, perhaps the first time ever.